Jeremy, thanks for sitting down with us before the 2021 season. I want to talk about the offseason first. What was your focus and how did you spend the offseason?
Yeah, I think going into the offseason, my last year ended in a way that I wasn't super proud of. Obviously, a lot of things out of my control, dealing with a concussion, finally getting back just for that last game, unfortunate last game. But then knowing that I had an extended offseason to actually get to a place where I was mentally just really refreshed, that was the ultimate goal of that offseason. I felt going into national team camp, it's not that I rushed that mental reset, but there was obviously a goal in mind and a target date a little bit earlier than most guys, and I had to find a way to be as ready as possible. And looking back in hindsight, and even in that moment, I knew that I wasn't ready, that I hadn't gone through the processes that I needed to be in the right frame of mind to perform. But ultimately, it's almost as if that camp was kicking the cobwebs out of the concussion, of the post-concussive symptoms, and now it's about really feeling myself again, feeling like I'm renewed.
You had played 75 straight games for the Timbers. That's the Timbers Ironman record, the consecutive games record. And then you get the concussion. You missed the last 5 games of the regular season. You come off the bench in the playoff game. How did you handle that mentally after playing so many straight games, now having to deal with an injury that's keeping you out?
I think it was frustrating, mostly because of the timing of the year, right? We were starting to hit some sort of a stride after a little bit of a downturn in form after the bubble, and we were scoring a lot of goals, feeling good about the way we were playing. And me personally, I felt pretty sharp and really healthy. And the way that it happened, it didn't feel like an accident. Like I couldn't watch the play over, but everyone who spoke to me about it was genuinely worried, first and foremost, but also said it was uncalled for. And so when I finally felt ready to rewatch the play and see really how much time the defender, Jordan Harvey, had to size me up, and to see that decision that he took, I don't think that was an appropriate decision as an athlete, as a fellow competitor. I'm all about, getting an edge on your opponent, but that's a little bit too far. And especially the immediate reaction in that moment was, oh, I didn't do anything, I barely touched him. And I remember hearing that, even though I didn't feel the concussion, but I remember hearing that. I'm like, please do not come at me with this kind of energy. So it was a lot of processing in the offseason. I get this is a sport, these things happen, but I wish that would have transpired differently. And now I'm really focusing on 2021, getting our team into the right state of mind, because we got big goals ahead with CCL, and then with an MLS season that's definitely going to be challenging as well in its own right. So lots to look forward to, and the past is definitely the past.
You brought up the CCL. That's the first game, and it might feel a little different in a preseason when the first game isn't opening day 1 of 34. It's 1 of 2. It's a knockout round right away. What does that opportunity mean to yourself and to the club?
I think it brings us under a little bit of pressure right out the gate. I think in the past we've seen some CCL teams do really well and go deep into the tournament, but then come back into MLS and really struggle to find that rhythm, because you could tell that there was, whether consciously or subconsciously, a little bit of the focus was on trying to make history and being that first team, and then focusing on the season and what would come after. So for us, it's understanding that there is that pressure of a 2-leg game right off the bat, but also trying to find a way to manage those emotions and expectations and goals with knowing that we have a 34-game season to focus on as well. So we need to stay as emotionally level as possible.
Going on the road in CONCACAF is not easy, whether you're a national team, whether you're a club team in CCL. You've played in a lot of different environments in your career. How do you prepare mentally to go to San Pedro Sula, to play at Marathon in the first match of the season?
I think it's really difficult. We have a locker room that's played in so many different leagues, especially South and Central American leagues. So I think that's definitely a benefit of ours, and hopefully the different experiences playing in those leagues, playing against some of those opponents, will pay off for us in the long run. For me personally, having played a U20 qualifying tournament against a lot of the Central American teams in Costa Rica, with refs that we might not be getting necessarily week in, week out in MLS, I understood the challenges that presented, us being in a new environment. And so that's something that I'm trying to share with some of the younger guys who maybe didn't have those international experiences early on in their careers. But I know the older guys are ready for this. They've already played a CCL with this team. So they know that they didn't go as far as they would have liked, and they see this as an opportunity where they feel fresh. They know that they have the talent to lead our team to a championship. So we got to take it one game at a time, knowing that San Pedro Sula is not going to be an easy place to play in, but we have the talent, and I think we have the determination and mentality to withstand whatever's thrown at us.
What are you focusing on for yourself in 2021, growth as a player-wise?
I think if I look at 2020 and I look at the step that I took then, I think it was a pretty big step. The consistency in which I was able to find goals or assists, the variety of positions from which I was able to do it, whether it was a free kick, off a corner kick, in the run of play, those were things that I didn't have. I wasn't able to contribute to the team in 2017, 2018, and even 19. That said, it was a shortened season. We didn't play as many games, so what I'm really targeting is consistency. Because if I can have that kind of year through a 34-game season, then we're looking at a lot of goals, a lot of assists, and helping the team in a really significant way with some of the dirty work as well, some of the stuff that I'm accustomed to doing for this team. So it's a challenge. I look at every year like, can I top what I've already done? And do I have more to give? And the answer, I hope, is always yes. And so I'm always out in the field in training, talking to the coaches, finding ways to either maintain that level or find a different one. And I mean, we'll see. It might not come day one, but I'm confident that at some point I can hit a strong stride like I did last year.
Where does motivation come from when you've had success on the field, you've had good seasons, you signed a long-term contract before last season? Where does motivation come from within you to not be complacent in where you're at and to continue to try to grow?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's one that I ask myself a lot, because you always want to know why you're doing things and what's keeping you going. And on one hand, it's the competitive nature. Us growing up, however old to now, playing this game, always wanting to be the best. That's definitely one thing. There is always, international tournaments and national teams that motivate players, but I think more important than that, because what you'll find as you grow older is that you might not necessarily see eye to eye with people who are making decisions in those circles, and you can't allow that to affect your motivation as an individual. You also can't, because if you do that, then you're almost not playing for yourself, and you're not playing for something that's more important. You're playing for someone else's validation, which as an academy kid into college, into my early years, I was definitely always trying to play for someone else, trying to play to feel like I belonged. But I know what I bring, and I know where I belong as well. So for me, the motivation comes with that competitive nature of my coming from within, and the people around me, my family, my friends, who want to see me push myself, get to the highest level, whether it's being the best player in this league or being, on Champions League on a daily basis or in a World Cup, whatever it might be. But it's all about the people closest to me who have been there through everything, not the people that are going to come and go.
Appreciate you sharing with us, taking some time with us, and we look forward to seeing you in 2021, Jeremy. Thanks for the time.
Thanks for having me.